better. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, our last presentation before lunch. I'm going to introduce to you Otangelo Grasso. Hopefully I said his name properly. I apologize if I didn't. He is a Swiss-Italian author, apologist, and researcher based in Brazil, known for his work on Christian apologetics and the Shroud of Turin. His YouTube channel, Christ, the Evidence, features debates and presentations on theology, science, and faith. In 2024, he published From Forensics to Faith, exploring the Shroud's history, scientific analysis, and gospel correlations. Grasso also curates the website Reason and Science, offering resources on intelligent design and Christianity. Through books, interviews, and the Shroud Wars series, he provides evidence based on defense of faith and aims to bridge science and belief for skeptics and seekers alike. If you would please help me welcome Otangelo Grasso.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Before I begin the presentation, I want to express my gratitude to Bob Rocker, whose contribution made it possible for me to be here at this Congress, and also Joe Marino and the organizers for this amazing event. I want quickly to introduce myself for those that don't know me. My name is Otangelo Grasso. I am Swiss-Italian and live in Brazil. I am a researcher who spent the last several years reconstructing the image and anatomical details of the man on the shroud using AI, forensic data, and photogrammetry. Today, I want to share with you what this extraordinary relic tells us scientifically, historically, and spiritually. Let me tell you why this journey became so personal to me. Years ago, when I first learned that the shroud's image formation defied every known artistic technique, no paint, no dye, just an inexplicable process at the fiber level, something profound happened. The realization that we were looking at something beyond human capability strengthened my faith in the Gospels enormously. If this ancient cloth bore witness to Christ through means science still cannot explain, then perhaps every detail of Scripture deserved deeper trust. That moment transformed my curiosity into a mission. And one part of that mission is what my visual presentation will be about today. No verse in the New Testament describes Christ's features. That void has fed 2,000 years of imagination. Could technology finally close the gap? 3 discoveries reshaped Shroud research. First, its photographic negative. Second, its 3D encoded information. And now, artificial intelligence revealing the face within. The journey of this presentation unfolds in 3 acts. First, the photographic negative that revealed a hidden image. Then, the discovery of 3D data encoded in light and shadow. And finally, AI reconstruction, bringing the face into focus. Each act builds on the last, transforming mystery into encounter. Why did one photograph shift the entire conversation? Because it uncovered what no eye had seen for 1900 years. On display, the image on the Shroud of Turin is diffuse, just a shadow on ancient cloth. In 1898, Turin opened its cathedral for an extraordinary exposition. Thousands of pilgrims queued outside. Using AI, we have now reconstructed the atmosphere of that day, restoring colors, lighting, and mood. Inside, an amateur photographer set up his heavy view camera. Heavy view camera. Secondo Pia, an Italian lawyer, became the first person in history to photograph the Shroud in 1898 during that public exhibition. The National Cinema Museum in Turin holds over 13,000 photographs taken by Pia, which help reconstruct the urban and architectural history of Piedmont, an area in northern Italy. This 1890 self-portrait shows Secondo Pia. Gaining permission to photograph the Shroud required months of negotiation and persistence. At the time, the Shroud was guarded by the House of Savoy. Only after long negotiations did they allow Pia to set up his camera and take the shot. This is the original large format camera used by Secondo Pia to capture the first photographic negative of the Shroud of Turin, here displayed at the Shroud Museum in Turin. This is Pia's iconic negative, precise, lifelike face, visible only in reverse, suddenly emerged from the shadows of cloth. It wasn't art, it was something else. In the dark room, the image emerged. Pia stared in silence. What would you feel seeing a human face form from a linen cloth, unpainted, untouched? Pia saw something shocking. A lifelike, anatomically precise human face emerged on the photographic negative. This is the iconic 1899 negative photograph taken by Pia. The first time, the image on the Shroud of Turin revealed astonishing anatomical clarity and depth when reversed on photographic film. Pia wrote, "I saw the Holy Face appear with such clarity I was dumbfounded. It was as if the Shroud itself was a photographic negative that could be developed into a breathtaking positive image of the crucified Jesus." A face stared back, eyes closed, beard neat, wounds exact. The plate revealed a photographic negative pre-encoded on the linen. No paint, no dye, just physics. The discovery raced through European papers overnight. Notice, in positive light, features vanish, flip tones, and you gain depth, shading, and wound detail, an optical fingerprint unique to this cloth. The idea that a medieval artist could intentionally create this negative effect without knowing photography, pushes logic beyond its breaking point. Pia's camera couldn't capture depth, color, or full detail. His work was groundbreaking, but technology limited what the world could see at the time. The grandeur, candlelight, and atmosphere of the cathedral were stripped away by early photographic limits. This isn't just colorization. The AI rebuilds light sources, textile textures, and environmental details, reviving the full emotional impact of that day. In this reconstruction, we can see the Shroud of Turin displayed above the altar as clergy, monks, nuns, and lay faithful gather in reverent silence. The display altar was rich with angels, saint medallions, and detailed carvings. The design combined Renaissance and Baroque elements into a symmetrical masterpiece. This image captures the exhibition of the shroud. And here an AI reconstruction. The 5 Catholic prelates held the relic before the faithful during the historic exposition in 1898. Act 2. A new surprise. This image doesn't just show a face, it stores spatial information. It encodes depth. The next breakthrough came in the 1950s. Photographer Leo Valla discovered that the shroud image contained depth properties when illuminated and processed in 3D space. Valla used 2 projectors to cast the shroud's image onto a block of clay from different angles, sculpting it by hand. This transformed light intensity into depth, revealing facial contours not visible in 2D. In the 1970s, Barbara Sullivan published groundbreaking findings. She was the first to show that the entire shroud image, not just the face, had 3D properties. Sullivan's work gained wide recognition when she presented her results in the 1991 St. Louis Shroud Symposium, 18 years after her initial discoveries. Joe Marino even then played a major role in organizing that historic event. In 1976, physicists John Jackson and Eric Jumper, imaging experts, loaded a shroud transparency into a VP8 image analyzer. The VP8 image analyzer is an analog computer that converts brightness levels into 3D relief. When Jackson and Jumper loaded a shroud transparency into this device, they discovered something unprecedented. Unlike all other photographs, the shroud image produced a coherent 3-dimensional human form. The brightness on the shroud follows an inverse square law, meaning that as the distance between the cloth and the body increases, the brightness rapidly decreases, not linearly, but by the square of the distance. This precise mathematical relationship allows the VP8 image analyzer to convert brightness into accurate topographical depth. When analyzed, features like the tip of the nose appeared to produce while the eye sockets receded, it revealed a consistent and anatomically natural depth, exactly what you'd expect from a real human face. The VP8 image analyzer was invented by Peter Schumacher, an American optical engineer in the early 70s. A cloth apparently stores topography. For the first time in imaging history, brightness turned into body shape. This was no ordinary photograph. It was anatomical topography locked in linen. This grid shows brightness values from a 1976 NASA scan of the Shroud of Turin. Each number in the table is a brightness value from a 50 micron square on the shroud, recorded in 8-bit grayscale. 0 is black and 255 is white. Each pixel can have one of 256 possible values from 0 to 255. When these values are interpreted as height using the VP8 image analyzer, they form a coherent 3D image, something no normal photograph does. When these values are processed using the inverse square law, they produce a realistic 3D image of a human form. This was discovered using the VP8 image analyzer and remains a key argument for the shroud's unique, non-artificial origin. This means the shroud image is not just a visual pattern, it's a spatial topography. Using a high-resolution scan of Giuseppe Enria's 1931 photograph of the shroud, a detailed 3D rendering of the face was created. In this image, Microsoft 3D Builder was used to map brightness values into depth, similar to how the VP8 image analyzer revealed the shroud's unique spatial encoding. Even the arms and legs on the shroud displayed correct limb proportions in 3 dimensions, something completely absent from flat medieval artworks. Brightness behaves like cloth to body distance. Impossible if an artist simply painted surface pigment. To replicate the shroud image with lasers, one would need 2 things: a vacuum ultraviolet laser system powerful enough to emit precise, finely tuned bursts capable of oxidizing linen at the microscopic level, a control software with exact instructions down to each of the 6 million 50 micron pixels, matching every 8-bit grayscale value from 0 to 255, as seen in this matrix, which encodes brightness for each point. Such a system would require knowing the original 3D anatomy beforehand and executing millions of adjustments with near atomic precision. This is not just improbable, it's beyond the realm of any known technology. The 3D details became specially visible when the image was analyzed using relief shading, a method that simulates angled lighting to reveal depth based on brightness patterns. The VP8 breakthrough in 1976 opened a crucial question. If the shroud truly encoded 3D data, what would advanced imaging reveal? Through the 1980s and 90s, researchers tested this with computer modeling and laser analysis. By the early 2000s, digital processing finally had the power to convert shroud brightness into true 3D visualizations, setting the stage for holographic and seismic breakthroughs. Modern artists like Leo Valla and Thierry Castex used shroud negatives to sculpt realistic human heads, proof that the image encodes accurate anatomical form. Dutch physicist Petrus Soens converted VP8 relief to holograms under lasers, and the man seems to float 3 inches forward. In 2005, he began his holographic work on the Shroud of Turin, and approximately 18 months were required to get the first successful holographic projection. His work led to visual discoveries not seen in prior photographic analysis. While Soons worked with holographic projection, French geophysicist Thierry Castex approached the same 3D data from a completely different angle using earthquake analysis software to peer inside the image. Each color channel, red, green, and blue, was individually processed as a grayscale image. After removing weave patterns and normalizing luminance, he translated pixel intensity into height data, then recombined channels into full-color 24-bit 3D surface models. These 3D results confirm previously known VP8 findings and challenge any notion of a medieval painting. The spatial encoding aligns exactly with body cloth distance, suggesting formation via a non-visible, depth-sensitive mechanism. Act 3, the AI reconstruction. Now we arrive at the third and final revelation, the face itself. What did Jesus really look like? This becomes the heart of today's presentation. This question has fascinated writers, artists, and scientists. Numerous books, documentaries, and articles have tried to answer it, often with speculation. Today, social media and YouTube channels are full of theories, speculative images, and AI attempts, each claiming to reveal the real face of Christ. When Pilate presented Jesus to the crowd, he had already been beaten, scourged, and crowned with thorns. The Gospels leave us only with that impression. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor in charge of Judea, bids them, "Behold the man." At that point, Jesus had been whipped and was mockingly dressed, wearing a crown of thorns and a purple mantle, and that is the most we ever get of a description of him, an impression of a tortured man, the very opposite of glory. Preaching from the Gospels to make converts, the earliest missionaries could not provide an accurate image of the physical appearance of Christ from these texts. People could apparently imagine Jesus in any way they wanted. In early Christian art, symbolism was predominantly employed, utilizing motifs like the lamb, the loaf, and particularly the fish. One of the oldest known portraits of Christ can be encountered in this faint fresco in a catacomb in Rome, dated to the 1st century, showing early Christian iconography. This image shows the faint, circular and aged icon-like depiction, probably painted. Within the reddish-brown frame, a barely visible human face emerges, suggesting an ancient Christ, Pantocrator, or relic-style image, heavily faded and surrounded by symmetrical decorative bands. Fast forward to the 6th century. The Christ Pantocrator icon at St. Catherine Monastery in Sinai shows striking anatomical parallels with the shroud face. When the shroud face is digitally superimposed over the Pantocrator, key features, nose length, eye spacing, beard shape, align with remarkable precision. The Pantocrator preserves details like cheek swelling and asymmetry, both visible on the shroud, indicating that artists may have traced the referenced the cloth. These congruences suggest the shroud was already known by the 6th century, possibly as the image of Edessa, long before its documented arrival in Europe. It's likely the artist used the shroud as a reference, overlaying it directly, then mirroring the result because they understood the image was a negative. They aimed to portray Jesus as he appeared in real life, not in imprint. The Pantocrator depicts asymmetry from direct observation, while the shroud reveals symmetry only when decoded as a negative, a discovery made only with modern photography. This suggests a depth of encoding in the shroud far beyond medieval artistic techniques. Today, Christ's face appears on countless icons, statues, and devotional items, but most are influenced, knowingly or not, by this shroud-based facial model. In cinema, the visual tradition continues. The first major Jesus film was The Life and Passion of Jesus Christ, released in France in 1902. This silent film was one of the earliest feature-length productions, offering a dramatized visual gospel narrative, but still based on common artistic depictions. Over time, nearly all major Jesus films depicted him with long hair and beard, features aligning closely with the man seen on the Shroud of Turin. Today, forensic artists and users of artificial intelligence produce increasingly refined digital reconstructions, striving for historical accuracy while grounded in shroud image data. My journey to reproduce the image of the shroud started in the mid-80s, shortly after my conversion, when I first read about the shroud while reading the book Jesus Lived in India. The relic instantly captured my attention and stirred the curiosity to know more about it. In 1989, the journal Nature published results dating the shroud between 1260 and 1390. Like many, I believed that this disqualified the shroud's authenticity. While the 1988 radiocarbon study concluded a medieval origin, ongoing debates about potential contamination suggest alternative interpretations of the shroud's image. 3 labs carbon dated a sample and returned a medieval range. Headlines declared the relic busted. At the time, experts publicly declared the shroud medieval. Professor Hall even mocked believers, comparing their faith to flat earth thinking. For years, I accepted those conclusions and distanced myself from shroud research, believing it was scientifically settled as a medieval artifact. For the next 25 years, I believed the case was closed. The shroud was medieval, and I moved on to other interests. But about 10 years ago, new research emerged challenging the radiocarbon results and showing that science still had no answer for the image's formation. This new evidence, fiber studies, contamination theories, statistical reanalysis, reignited my dormant curiosity. The image depth on the shroud is just 0.2 micrometers. The image is not based on pigment absorbed into yarn, but a surface-level oxidation of polysaccharides. No capillary penetration. All physics on the table, no mechanism fits. Chemical, thermal, or radiation models each solve part of the puzzle, but never all. By 2020, I was convinced the scientific case had shifted. The shroud deserved another look. Today, we know the Shroud of Turin is supported by at least 59 distinct and documented lines of evidence drawn from 6 scientific domains. Image superficiality to 0.2 microns, anatomically consistent blood stains with serum halos and clot borders, lack of directionality or pigment, and distance to intensity 3D encoding. It shows forensic congruence with the Sudarium of Oviedo. And it contains pollen from Jerusalem's Florence. A medieval forger would have depicted Jesus with arms crossed over the chest, as seen in effigies like Richard the Lionheart's tomb from the 12th century. But the shroud shows the arms crossed lower over the pubic region, a burial posture seen in Egypt's sarcophags, not medieval Europe. This anatomical detail, subtle yet precise, aligns with first-century burial norms and undermines any claim of medieval origin. When taken together, the odds of all the 59 features appearing on the single cloth by accident or human artifice are extremely small. No known process is capable of reproducing this. In 2022, I stumbled upon a colored shroud image online. Out of curiosity, I ran it through digital sharpening software. The result surprised me. For centuries, we asked, what did Jesus look like? Now, data begins to answer. The clarified image revealed hidden anatomical features, more facial volume, clearer eye sockets, and refined wound patterns, igniting my curiosity again. At that point, I committed to a full reconstruction, using every tool available from image sharpening to AI-driven photogrammetric analysis. High-resolution shroud photographs were used and enhanced with ChatGPT to clarify facial details and wounds. Inkscape, BeFunky, FaceApp, and many other tools adjusted contrast, symmetry, and lighting, guided by first-century Semitic features. I constantly compared outputs to the shroud, ensuring fidelity to its data, with hundreds of manual tweaks to achieve anatomical accuracy. Each step pushed the reconstruction closer to a higher accuracy and fidelity. This was a gradual process of refinement, layer by layer, driven by limited resources but a consistent goal to enhance and clarify the original image as faithfully as possible. I made hundreds of adjustments. This panel showcases a phase of stylistic experimentation, blending app-assisted rendering, facial symmetry corrections, and each version explores lighting, hair texture, expression, and skin tone realism. I also developed this full-body rendering, where every scourge mark was carefully placed, matching both frontal and dorsal bloodstain patterns visible on the shroud. After another full year of work, I improved facial volume, skin texture, lighting, realism, and symmetry, moving closer to an anatomically plausible result. In August of last year, the British newspaper Daily Mail featured my reconstruction, bringing broader attention to my renderings. Here's the side-by-side comparison. The faint enigmatic shroud image next to the AI-enhanced rendering. Italian sinologist Emanuela Marinelli praised this reconstruction as a significant contribution to AI-based shroud analysis, noting both its scientific methodology and devotional impact.
Che ho visto fatti con l'intelligenza artificiale, questo veramente mi sembra il migliore, il più aderente alla sindone, perfettamente sovrapponibile. Ha fatto un grosso lavoro. Otangelo ha scritto anche un libro che forse uscirà in Italia, ma è interessante questo risultato, ecco, perché vogliamo vedere il volto di Gesù. Non c'è niente da fare, no? Filippo dice, mostraci il Padre, no? E Gesù dice, ma chi vede me vede il Padre, quindi accontentatevi, insomma, avete avuto tanto. Certo, chi ha avuto la fortuna di vederlo a quei tempi ha avuto una grande grazia.
What follows are my most recent 2025 updates, benefiting from newer AI tools, improved resolution, and deeper analysis of forensic image features. This image presents a serene, sculptural likeness of Christ with eyes gently closed, conveying solemnity, peace, and introspective strength. The soft lighting and grayscale tone evoke timeless reverence, inviting contemplation. Before showing the latest images, I want to honor Giulio Ricci, a pioneer who combined theological reflection with geometric and anatomical study of the shroud. Giulio Ricci is the founder of the Roman Center of Synodology, and he was a key figure in bringing together scientific analysis and theological reflection on the shroud. Ricci identified the distinct facial injuries, swelling, blood from the crown of thorns, and evidence of multiple bodily fluids, capturing the full brutality of crucifixion. First, the rendering of the man as buried. The brutality is sobering. This reconstruction is based on Ricci's trauma analysis, showing facial swelling, blood clots, and nasal injuries consistent with the shroud's forensic data. And here we can see the full reconstruction. My latest work concluded shortly before this conference. This composite shows the gradual transformation from the faint negative imprint to a fully reconstructed, anatomically detailed human face. Under the injuries, a serene individual appears. This rendering shows the same face without wounds, symmetrical, peaceful, highlighting the man behind the suffering. Now picture yourself standing in the dim, silent tomb. Imagine that face coming to life, his eyes opening, the weight of the cross, the agony of the nails, the sacrifice for humanity's redemption, all fulfilled. In this moment, the Father confirming his accomplished mission. Can you imagine the radiant joy in his eyes, a joy beyond our comprehension, bursting with triumph, love, and eternal victory? This is a data-driven portrait derived directly from the shroud. Unlike traditional art, this reconstruction doesn't invent, it reveals. The facial blueprint was always there, hidden in linen, now finally brought to light. The reconstruction with eyes open, wounds omitted, presenting a serene, contemplative Jesus rooted in shroud data, but free from trauma. Every pixel in this portrait traces back to linen fibers. Here, a generated side profile view, giving new dimensionality and helping us visualize the full cranial and facial structure in profile. Unlike previous flat frontal-only reconstructions, this angle adds anatomical volume, offering a more lifelike understanding of his physical presence. This portrait blends shroud-based geometry with first-century Semitic traits, building only from physical evidence encoded in the cloth. And this image presents the facial reconstruction shown in frontal, three-quarter, and profile views. The image features two angled portraits. This olive-toned skin, thick arched eyebrows, and full beard reinforce the historically accurate representation of a first-century Judean male, consistent with the ethnographic traits observed in the ancient Near Eastern populations. Here's the final comparison. The shroud on the left and the reconstructed face on the right, proportions, hairline, beard, and closed mouth align perfectly. No other historical object combines these data layers. The shroud stands alone in integrated complexity. This full-body reconstruction of Jesus shows him standing against the backdrop of ancient Jerusalem, dressed in simple, undyed tunic tied in the waist and leather sandals, clothing consistent with first-century Jewish garments. His build is slender and proportionate, with broad shoulders and a calm yet commanding presence, blending historical realism with anatomical fidelity derived from the Shroud of Turin. Having the precise reconstruction of Christ's physical appearance, we can also carefully and with precision reconstruct the main events recorded in the Gospels, like Christ's baptism, or Jesus teaching the crowds, or this image portrays the encounter between Jesus and the Samaritan woman. In Matthew 23, often called the Seven Woes discourse, Jesus addresses the hypocrisy of the scribes and Pharisees directly and publicly. This image portrays the intimate and profound nocturnal meeting between Jesus and Nicodemus. Or this image dramatizes the mocking of Jesus. With this reconstruction complete, we can now imagine historically accurate gospel films portraying Christ with forensic and archaeological fidelity. This rendering shows Jesus carrying only the patibulum, the crossbeam, not the full cross, a detail consistent with Roman execution practices. Roman victims carried just a horizontal beam to the execution site. The upright stake, or stipes, was already fixed in the ground at Golgotha. This panoramic reconstruction shows the first-century Jerusalem, with Golgotha positioned just outside the northern city wall, near the main road. Located near a garden and along a visible route, Golgotha's placement aligns with Roman practices of executing criminals near public roads. Okay, I have more to show, but unfortunately my time doesn't allow it.
If you would rather just do the videos rather than questions, you can do that.
Yeah, I prefer to finish the presentation and then afterwards you can.
This is better than lunch.
So each word Jesus spoke from the cross required lifting his body, ripping against nail wounds, scraping skin, and triggering waves of suffocation, a searing nerve pain. On a barren hill outside Jerusalem's walls, the Son of God hangs between two criminals. Soldiers keep watch. The curious and the grieving gather in silence. Above his head, the inscription declares his true identity, King of the Jews. The suffering is real. In this image, Jesus' head is covered by the sudarium. In the Cathedral of Oviedo in northern Spain, there is a linen cloth called the Sudarium Christi, or the face cloth of Christ. The Sudarium Christi is a low-quality linen cloth like a handkerchief. Unlike the Shroud of Turin, it does not appear an image, but however, it does contain blood stains and serum stains caused by pleural edema fluid, which match the patterns of blood and serum, and the blood type AB found on the Shroud of Turin. The Sudarium likely covered Jesus' head while he was being taken down from the cross. In order to collect all the blood flowing from his head. The sudarium contains stains of blood and bodily fluids. The blood is human type AB, the same as that found on the shroud. The fluid is pleural edema, a liquid that develops in the lungs. This fluid can exit through the nostrils. Additionally, the fluid stains show signs of drying between further discharges, which means the body went through multiple movement cycles after the cloth had wrapped around the head. At sunset, his lifeless body is gently removed from the cross. Mary the mother stands quiet sorrow. The disciples cradle him, not just a fallen teacher, but the Lamb of God. Redemption has a price. In that still sealed tomb, no struggle was recorded, no movement, no sound. An image formed, not by pigment or pressure, but by an unknown mechanism at the surface level of the cloth. Now with light data and determination, we can look at the face behind the cloth. Not the symbol, not the painting, a human face, emerging from history's most enigmatic artifact. Our AI model proposes one possible interpretation of the facial features encoded in the shroud, a theoretical approximation open to peer critique. The shroud is not the end. It is a signpost, a reminder. The one who suffered is the one we will see alive and glorified. The shroud has confronted us with enigmas that have stretched the limits of science. From its photonegative revelation to encoded 3D data, and now with AI, we glimpse a realistic reconstruction of Jesus' appearance. But this is not the end, only a threshold. The new question is, where do we take this witness next? I would like to explore these reconstructions. If you'd like to explore these reconstructions information about the shroud and more in-depth content, I share all of that on my website and YouTube channel. You can find me at reasonandscience.catsport.com and my YouTube channel Christ the Evidence, or just search for my name on Amazon, where I have several books published not only on the shroud but also on intelligent design and creationism. Now, as I conclude, I'd like to share a final reflection in music, a song that traces this journey from photography to 3D encoding to the face we now see through AI.
Secondo Pia pierced the night, a plate of glass, a breath, a prayer, revealed a face beyond compare, the negative reversed the veil, a ghost of glory bruised and pale, and scholars watched with hushed surprise, a buried image crystallized. Then came the 70s, strange and new, the linen mat, a depth it knew. The bright withdrew, the dark drew near, a 3D form through blood and hair. They tried to paint, to sculpt, to trace the silent man, the hidden face, but every effort
sorry we don't have any time for questions. We'll restart in this room at 1 o'clock. I want to thank Otangelo Grasso one more time.